Heavy machinery tore through my backyard while I was away caring for my sick daughter. The Pinecrest HOA having built a train track right through my family's three-generation farm without permission, destroying my best crops. But I discovered something that would turn their entire world upside down. Their fancy headquarters was actually sitting on my land. I'd inherited my grandfather's 50-acre farm 5 years ago when he passed, a sprawling piece of working land on the outskirts of what used to be rural county territory, now slowly swallowed by suburban sprawl. The Pinecrest community had sprung up around us over the last decade, all McMansions and manicured lawns where cornfields once stood, their HOA relentlessly trying to force me to join, claiming my eyesore farm dragged down their precious property values. I refused every time. This land in my family since 1943 was more than property. It was my heritage, my livelihood, my home. My grandfather built the Red Barn with his own hands after World War II, teaching me everything I knew about farming, his legacy a tether stronger than any developer's checkbook could sever. Trouble started small. Complaints about my tractor's morning rumble, citations for my overgrown vegetable garden they claimed broke some county rule, demands to repaint the barn a more appropriate color than its traditional red. I ignored them all. I wasn't part of their HOA, and they had no say over my land. Then Rebecca Winters took over as HOA president, a sleek executive in her late 30s with a corporate edge, seeing my farm as a blemish on her suburban utopia. During her campaign, she vowed to solve the farm problem, enlisting Richard Thompson, a retired corporate lawyer in his 60s, as her enforcer, a duo determined to erase my roots. Thompson would drop by with friendly suggestions about how much developers would pay, leaving brochures for retirement communities, hinting a man my age shouldn't work so hard. But I wasn't budging. Last fall, I left for 3 weeks to help my daughter post-surgery, noticing surveying equipment near my property line before I went, dismissing it as another HOA landscaping gig. Big mistake. I returned to a literal train track slicing through my eastern field, linking their clubhouse to a new heritage center, a tourist gimmick carrying residents across my land. They'd ripped out nearly an acre of my best topsoil, where sweet corn for the farmer's market grew, replacing it with tracks, lights, benches, and signs touting Pinecrest's agricultural past. A bitter irony as they gutted my actual harvest. Confronting Winters at the HOA office, she flashed smug paperwork claiming legal easement rights via an obscure ordinance, saying they'd sent notice I'd ignored while away. "The train adds character," she said, waving a manicured hand. "It'll boost property values 15%. You should thank us." When I protested the ruined crops, Thompson slid a check across the table, pennies compared to my losses, dismissing it as market value. I called my lawyer, Sam, who saw through their sham. Falsified permits, doctored maps, rushed construction, exploiting my absence. Undoing it legally would take months, maybe years of costly litigation. Sam warned, "They're betting you can't fight their deep pockets." That night, watching their garish train test run through my field, I felt violated, but also resolved. There had to be a way to hit back harder. Standing on my porch that night, watching the red and white train cars gleam in the sunset as they rolled through my ruined eastern field, I felt a fire ignite. Pinecrest HOA had crossed a line, and their smug certainty I'd crumble only sharpened my resolve. Rebecca Winters and Richard Thompson thought they'd won with their falsified permits and paltry check, but I wasn't done. I dove into my grandfather's old records, stored in metal filing cabinets in the red barn he'd built. A treasure trove of meticulous documentation from a man who'd fought developers in the 70s and learned to keep every scrap. Hours ticked by as I sifted through yellowed deeds, 1940s survey maps, and county letters, until a folder labeled Northeast Corner Dispute 1968 stopped me cold. Inside, a surveyor's map with Grandpa's handwritten notes revealed a bombshell. The quarter-acre where the HOA's headquarters sat was mine. Due to a 1968 surveying error, when Grandpa allowed a county water line easement, the property line was misdrawn, and subsequent developments, including Pinecrest's office built in 2018, used those flawed maps without checking the original deeds. I called Sam at dawn, sending scans of everything, After 3 days digging through county records, he called back, voice buzzing. Your grandfather's right, that parcel still legally belongs to your farm. They never did a proper title search back to the original boundaries. So I own their headquarters? I asked, mind racing. Yes, he said. They've been squatting on your land for 7 years. Prove it with a corrected survey and it's yours. We'd need to file quietly, keep it under wraps until official, a plan forming that could end this, or blow it wide open. Winters strode over the next morning, Navy suit pristine, Thompson trailing, demanding a 20-foot buffer zone around their train tracks because my crops were too close to their attraction. This is private property, I shot back, clad in Grandpa's faded overalls. You had no right to build here. Thompson sneered. We have permits, it's happening like it or not. Falsified permits, I countered. My lawyers confirmed it. Winter's smile flickered, but she rallied. Prove it, farmer, sue us. We've got years and resources you don't. Gesturing at the train, she added, This is progress. Your quaint farm's holding us back. Sell while you can. As they left, she tossed over her shoulder, 6 trains daily next week. Move those crops and quiet that tractor. Residents complain. I snapped a photo of their trespassing arrogance, evidence for later, and muttered, Enjoy your victory while it lasts. Already moving. Sam filed the paperwork discreetly, expediting it with county clerk favors while I hatched a bigger play. I visited Veterans Rebuilding America, a charity I'd long supported in Grandpa's honor, meeting Director Maria Jenkins privately. Laying out the HOA's harassment, the train, and my land discovery, I asked, If I donate a building, could you use it? Her eyes widened. Absolutely, our lease is up, rents are brutal, this'd be huge. Not about money, I said. It's about Grandpa's legacy and real community. Next, I lined up Jeff, a locksmith friend, for quick action once ownership cleared, and pored over the HOA bylaws, Section 12, Paragraph 7. All official business must happen at their registered headquarters, a clause I'd turn into a noose. With the plan set, every night that week I stood on my porch, watching the HOA's train carve through my field, channeling my fury into focus as Sam's expedited paperwork inched closer to sealing their fate. Pinecrest's bylaws, clutched from a sympathetic neighbor, became my playbook. Their reliance on that headquarters was a chink in their armor I'd exploit. I ordered a custom banner, arranged for a local paper photographer to coincidentally pass by at the right moment, and prepped with Maria and Jeff for a Saturday strike when the HOA ran its monthly inspections. Sam called Friday, voice electric. It's official, you own that parcel, documents arrive tomorrow. Certain, he asked. Thinking of Grandpa's 3-generation legacy and the HOA's disdain, I replied, never more sure, ready to reclaim what was mine and twist the knife. At 6 a.m. Saturday, I hit the HOA office with ownership papers, a sheriff's deputy as witness, and Jeff, who swapped the locks in minutes. Legal? The deputy asked, scanning the docs. Yes, sir, this is my property, I said, posting ownership notices and donation papers on every door. By 8 a.m., Veterans Rebuilding America volunteers rolled in, veterans in charity tees, hauling signs proclaiming future home of Veterans Rebuilding America, American flags snapping in the breeze. Maria's crew measured for renovations, coffee and donuts turning it into a celebration, a stark contrast to the HOA's sterile reign. Neighbors trickled over, curious, as the newspaper crew arrived, not just a photographer but a reporter, tipped off about the generous donation. Winters pulled up at 9 a.m. in her luxury SUV, freezing behind the wheel as she gaped at the transformed building, then stormed out, key useless in the new locks. Spotting me with Maria and the vets, she charged over, heels clicking. What the hell are you doing? This is HOA property. I handed her the certified docs. Actually, Rebecca, this parcel's always been mine. Check the surveys. I'm donating it to a worthy cause. The deputy stepped in. Ma'am, it's in order, as her face drained, then flushed. Impossible, she snapped, paging through the papers. Thompson arrived, blustering. We'll sue you into oblivion, but the county seal shook him. Try, I said, and explain those fake train permits. The county'll love that. Neighbors murmured, Ellen stepping up. Is it true, Rebecca? Falsified permits? Winters stammered. For the community's good property values. Dave cut in. That train doubled our dues for what? The reporter pounced, grilling her on permits and boundaries, her no comment drowned by the crowd's rising questions. Maria pitched the veterans' mission, job training, support groups winning nods. One neighbor asked, Open to all vets, my son served. Absolutely, Maria said, shifting the mood to support. By afternoon, Winters called an emergency meeting at a member's house. Locked out of their HQ, Ellen texting me, "Total chaos. Half the board's quitting, they're digging into finances. Winters misused reserves." The evening news ran it. Farmer versus HOA, vets gaining a home, the train's shady permits exposed, my phone buzzing with neighbors' support. Apologies, offers to fix my field, a tide turning against the HOA's overreach. The fallout from that Saturday morning hit Pine Crest like a storm, the HOA's smug empire crumbling as their headquarters. Now veterans rebuilding America's stood as a monument to their miscalculation. Ellen's texts kept coming. "They're scrambling, Winters is toast. Finances are a mess." A chaotic unraveling sparked by my quiet reclaiming of that quarter-acre. The news story blew up, footage of veterans hoisting their signs paired with pointed questions about falsified train permits, neighbors flooding the online comments with support. "About time someone stood up to these mini-dictators," one wrote. "God bless our veterans," another added. My phone wouldn't stop, calls from folks I'd barely known, apologizing for staying silent, asking about the charity, some offering to mend my trampled field. By Sunday, a petition circulated, demanding Winters' resignation and a full audit, Thompson vanishing amid the scandal, whispers of state bar scrutiny trailing him. 3 days later, Ellen called, voice steady, "I'm interim president. The board ousted Winters last night. We owe you an apology, Mr. Miller. What they did was inexcusable." I let it sink in, savoring the shift, then listened as she proposed a deal. They'd dismantle the train, restore my land at their expense if the veterans would lease them a small office space for meetings. "We're not asking much, just enough to function," she said. I ran it by Maria, who saw potential. Their rent could fund programs, maybe get residents volunteering. Vets need community ties. We met at Ellen's house, my terms clear. My farm forever free of HOA rules, a binding heritage agricultural zone along our boundary and rent matched by donations to the charity. The new board nodded, Ellen shaking my hand. "We want to be good neighbors, build community, not tear it apart." Sam drafted the agreement, signed within a week, and crews soon arrived, ripping out the train tracks, restoring my eastern field soil, compensating me fairly for lost crops. A far cry from Thompson's insult of a check. The veterans settled into their HQ by month's end. The HOA squeezed into a backroom office, Maria nodding residents already signing up to volunteer. Spring brought a surprise. Ellen and neighbors pitched a community garden on our border, involving the vets for therapy and skills. "Many find gardening healing," Maria said, and when we broke ground in April, 20 residents showed with shovels and seedlings, kids eager to dig, food shared in a scene Grandpa would have loved. By summer, the garden thrived, flowers and veggies tended by vets and homeowners, a bridge where a fence once divided. My farm flourished again, the eastern field yielding bumper crops, a portion donated to the veterans' pantry in Grandpa's tradition. Winters occasionally drove by, glaring at the charity sign on her old turf, now living HOA-free downtown. Thompson faded, dodging legal heat. The train's remnants went to a children's museum, an ironic twist teaching kids about farming, the very thing the HOA tried to erase. Standing my ground hadn't just saved my land. It forged something better, a real community rising from the wreckage of their overreach, proof that sometimes a fight yields a harvest worth more than revenge. The Pinecrest HOA's collapse left a void that filled with something unexpected, not just victory over their train tracks, but a community reborn from the ashes of their arrogance. It started with that gut punch, returning from my daughter's surgery to find my eastern field gutted, sweet corn replaced by a tourist train, all while Rebecca Winters smirked about property values, and Richard Thompson tossed me a laughable check. I'd inherited Grandpa's 50-acre farm, a lifeline since 1943, and watched Pinecrest's McMansions creep closer. Their HOA hounding me to join, then punishing me when I wouldn't. Tractor too loud, barn too red, garden too wild. Winters, with her corporate polish, and Thompson, her legal bulldog, saw my refusal as a personal affront. Their heritage center train a final violation of my land and legacy. Digging through Grandpa's records flipped the script. His 1968 survey proved their shiny headquarters sat on my quarter-acre, a mistake they'd built on for 7 years. Sam confirmed it, and with veterans rebuilding America as my wildcard, I locked them out, turning their office into a veterans hub overnight. Winters, Rage, and Thompson's threats couldn't undo the county seal on my docks, the news exposing their falsified permits as neighbors turned. Ellen's rise as interim president marked the shift. Her apology and deal to remove the train, restore my field, and lease a corner of the building signaled a truce. The garden that followed, bridging our lands, wasn't planned. It grew from shared sweat, vets and residents planting side by side, kids learning where food comes from. Winter's fall was complete. Booted from the board, shunned after her developer ties surfaced, she slunk to a downtown condo, glaring at the charity sign when she passed. Thompson faded too, dodging bar inquiries over those fake permits, leaving the HOA to reckon with its overreach. The train's parts became a museum exhibit, teaching kids about agriculture, an irony so rich it almost made up for the lost corn. My farm roared back, Eastern Field thriving, crops feeding the veterans' pantry in Grandpa's name, while the HOA's new board slashed dues, rewrote bylaws for transparency, and focused on needs, not appearances. Ellen even asked me to advise their community relations committee. "We need your perspective to stay grounded," she said, cookies from Grandma's recipe my only condition. Nights now feel different. Standing on my porch, I don't see a train mocking my harvest, just a fence with open gates, neighbors waving as they tend the garden. The fight wasn't just about saving my land. It reminded everyone what community means: respect, not rules; connection, not cash. Pinecrest isn't perfect, but it's real again, a place where vets find purpose and kids plant seeds, where my grandfather's legacy doesn't just survive, it grows stronger than ever. A harvest of something better than I dared hope. The train tracks were gone, but the scars they left on my eastern field lingered as a reminder of Pinecrest HOA's audacity, until the community I never expected began to heal them. It all started when I came home to devastation. My three-generation farm sliced open by Rebecca Winters, tourist gimmick while I was away with my sick daughter, my sweet corn trampled for their heritage center, Link. Grandpa's 50 acres, held since 1943, had weathered plenty, his red barn a testament to his post-war grit. But Pinecrest's sprawl brought new threats. Complaints about my tractor, my garden, my refusal to join their HOA. Winters, with her corporate sheen, and Thompson, her legal muscle, turned harassment into destruction, betting I'd cave to their falsified permits and dismissive check. Grandpa's records changed everything. A 1968 survey error handed me their headquarters, a quarter-acre they'd squatted on since 2018. With Sam's legal finesse, I locked them out, gifting it to veterans rebuilding America, flipping their power base into a veterans' haven in one dawn raid. Winter's fury and Thompson's bluster couldn't rewrite the deeds, the news shredding their credibility as neighbors woke up. Ellen's board stepped in, dismantling the train, restoring my land, and leasing a corner back. A deal sealed with my terms. No HOA rules on my farm, a protected boundary, donations matching rent. The garden that sprouted between us wasn't my idea, but 20 residents with shovels and seedlings made it real, vets finding solace in the soil alongside kids who'd never dug before. Winters vanished, ousted, isolated, glaring from her condo at the charity sign that mocked her reign, while Thompson slunk off, dodging legal heat. The train's carcass became a museum piece, teaching agriculture to kids, a twist that would have made Grandpa chuckle. My farm rebounded, Eastern Field lush again, crops split with the veterans' pantry, a nod to his values. The HOA shed its old skin, dues dropped, bylaws opened up, Ellen's crew even roping me in to advise with cookies on the table. Standing my ground didn't just save my land. It forged a community where gates swing wide, where respect trumps rules, where Grandpa's legacy thrives in ways I never imagined. A harvest of connection, not just corn. The Pinecrest HOA's train tracks were a wound that cut deeper than my eastern field. They sliced through 3 generations of my family's legacy. A 50-acre farm I'd inherited from Grandpa, who'd built its red barn with calloused hands after World War II. I'd come home from my daughter's surgery to find my sweet corn gone, replaced by Rebecca Winters' garish tourist train, her smug claim of property values, a thin veil for the destruction she and Richard Thompson unleashed. Their HOA had nagged me for years. Tractor too loud, barn too red, escalating when Winters took over, vowing to erase my farm problem with Thompson's legal tricks. Their falsified permits a bet I'd fold under pressure. They didn't count on Grandpa's meticulous records, a 1968 survey error proving their headquarters sat on my land, a secret weapon I'd wield to turn their world upside down. Locking them out with Sam's help and donating that quarter-acre to veterans rebuilding America wasn't just revenge. It was justice, their office reborn as a veterans hub overnight. Winters, Rage, and Thompson's threats crumbled against county deeds, the news exposing their sham as neighbors turned on them. Ellen's new board dismantled the train, restored my field, and leased a corner back under my terms. My farm free of their rules, a protected boundary, rent fueling the charity. The garden that grew between us, vets and residents planting together, became a bridge I hadn't planned, kids digging beside men who'd found peace in the dirt. Winters faded, a condo dweller glaring at her lost empire. Thompson slipped away, shadowed by legal whispers. The train's parts now sit in a museum, teaching kids about farming, an irony that honors Grandpa's fight. My land thrives, Eastern Field rich again, crops shared with the veterans' pantry, while Pinecrest's HOA rewrote itself. Lower dues, open bylaws, Ellen pulling me in to advise with Grandma's cookies in tow. Standing firm didn't just save my farm. It built a community where fences open both ways, where respect outlasts greed, where Grandpa's legacy grows stronger than ever, a harvest worth more than the corn they stole. The train tracks that gouged my eastern field were Pinecrest HOA's final overreach, a brazen assault on my family's 50-acre farm, land Grandpa claimed in 1943, its red barn his post-war triumph, sparked by Rebecca Winters' vision of suburban perfection clashing with my refusal to bow. I'd found them after 3 weeks away with my sick daughter, sweet corn swapped for a tourist train, Winters and Richard Thompson dismissing my loss with a smug check and fake permits. Years of their gripes, tractor noise, barn color, exploded into this, a calculated move to break me, but Grandpa's 1968 survey error handed me their headquarters, a quarter-acre they'd built on unknowingly. With Sam's legal savvy, I turned it over to veterans rebuilding America, locks changed, signs up. Their empire flipped in a morning ambush that left Winters fuming and Thompson scrambling. The news tore them apart, falsified permits exposed, neighbors revolting, Ellen's board stepping in to rip out the tracks, heal my land, and lease a corner back under my rules. No HOA overreach, a heritage zone, charity boosted by rent. A garden bloomed where we'd fought, vets and residents planting together, kids learning from soil what Winters never grasped. She's gone now, a condo exile glaring at the veteran's sign, Thompson's ducked out, legal shadows trailing. The train's a museum relic, teaching agriculture, an echo of what they tried to erase. My farm's alive, eastern field abundant, crops feeding the veterans' pantry in Grandpa's spirit, while Pinecrest's HOA reformed, dues sane, bylaws fair, Ellen's invite to advise sweetened by cookies. Standing my ground didn't just reclaim my land. It forged a real community, gates open, respect ruling, Grandpa's legacy the heart of it all. Sometimes fighting back plants something better, a harvest of connection richer than any victory alone.